right? So worldwide, just construction alone is $15 trillion. It's an extremely wasteful industry, and it's also, there's not a lot of trust in it. There's not a lot of transparency in the way we do things. So these types of things make it a target for technology, for automation and for integrated type technologies. So for the built environment, I think it's time that we start to improve our project life cycles. We start to increase the investments in built environment, and most importantly, we start to create new economic growth. And these are the reasons why I joined BuildngSMART, which is a volunteer organisation. BuildngSMART is about driving the uptake of technologies that work towards these goals. So assisting industry to work better, and it does that by advocating, helping with implementation, then also educating. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about BIMcreds, which is an online tool, an online testing tool. It's been developed by the BSA, and it's about cutting through the BIM-wash. So it's about cutting through the bullshit, if you like. Trying to work out who has the skills and who knows what they're talking about in this space. How I'm going to approach the topic is first just cover off on BSA a little bit, but then talk about why this test is needed. Why do we need it at this time? We'll go through how the test is structured, what the scope of that test is, and then ultimately we'll start to look at what its possible future might be as we move forward. So BuildngSMART itself, the first thing is it's a not-for-profit. It is run by volunteers, but it's funded by its members and by its subscribers. It kicked off under another name back in 1994, and then it was mentioned earlier, it was about something called IFC, which was a file type. It's not that today. What BSA is about today is about open exchange of information in whatever form that is, and there's many, many different ways that we can exchange information. The key here is that it's open and it's transparent and everyone can use it. So that's what BSA is about. Where we operate is not so much Australasia, it's really about Australia and New Zealand. That's sort of our home ground. We are governed, or we're a part of BuildngSMART International. It is about technical standards, so it is developing a lot of the types of things that are driving our global technology companies. It also feeds down to us, its global experience, knowledge that it gets from its global, all the different BuildngSMART organisations around the world. Now here in Australia and New Zealand, I mean, our key thing is advocating for open standards. We're interested in collaborative processes. We do want to see people work together, for those practices to be integrated. So the idea here is that a piece of information can be trusted by the next person in the line. So the idea is that knowledge gets passed along the line and it builds as we go. And the way we do this is we interact with government and industry, but we work across not just buildings but also the infrastructure space. So the test and why it's needed, largely it's because there's nothing out there. Almost jump to the last point here, it's a little bit like when sustainability came out. So if you think about that time and you spoke to a builder and said, I really want to have a sustainable project here, you get offered a rainwater tank. The body of knowledge around sustainability hadn't been developed yet, and that's a little bit where we are in the technology space. When it comes to construction technologies, the body of knowledge is not there, not in its entirety. We heard that in the panel. They're wanting people to tell them what to provide, but the person they're asking to provide it doesn't know what he wants. He actually doesn't know what he wants until it goes wrong. So this is the problem. Now, there's no specific qualification to rely upon yet. There's lots of universities that are incorporating BIM within their training, but the bulk of the training at the moment is happening at workplaces or in technology providers, software providers. And that means it's very difficult for an owner that's planning to build a house or a building to be able to determine the capabilities of the organisation that he's dealing with. Now what I mean by that is, in construction, particularly in big projects, people are employed for the project. They don't necessarily even stay with that company. So you can work with a company that has awesome credentials, but it may not have the people within it that are able to deliver that next time. For employers, particularly particularly ones that are looking at BIM for the first time, it's difficult for them to determine whether the person that's applying for a job actually has those skills. In terms of the individuals themselves, so the guys out here on the panel, very, very experienced people. But in an interview, they don't come across any differently to somebody that's able to speak well about this topic. And then in terms of the industry itself, we can't measure where we're at. So we actually don't know how Australia ranks against any other country in the world. And in actual fact, no country knows how it ranks about any other country in the world, because these tests don't exist in the global space either. So this is why I think it's similar to the sustainability side of things. Back in the day, we relied upon courses that were brought out for the registered Green Star professionals, and nowadays we don't even look for them. It's expected that people know what sustainability means. There is many, many places to learn about it. It's taught in our universities, and you can rely that the person that you're employing is going to have a level of knowledge in this if he has the right credentials. So the reason that I think this test is needed is because there isn't one at this point in time. Now, in terms of our test, in the panel earlier, they referred to some documents, and one of the ones they referred to is the APCC ASIF BIM Knowledge and Skills Framework, and it's only just been released earlier this month. Now, APCC is the Australian Procurement Council. It represents much of the government around Australia who are buyers of construction services. ASIF represents organisations like QMBA, the Australian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, the Institute of Architects, Consulting Australia, this type of thing. So very much the providers of construction services. So the reason why these guys are working on these things is because it's good. It's a good idea. And the way that they've come about developing this framework is in 5 modules. So they've looked at it and they've said, well, we have clients who are basically receiving information in this chain. We have designers who are creating information, so they're authors of building information modelling. We have constructors, and they're consuming these models, so they're trying to determine whether the building is, whether the constructability of the job, whether it clashes, whether that design works. And then we also have manufacturers and the facility side of things. Now, the framework covers the first 3. It doesn't cover manufacturing or facility yet. So it was interesting that a lot of the discussion in our panel was about those 2 topics. And largely that's because that body of knowledge isn't developed yet. We haven't gotten to that space. It's only just starting to be developed now. The framework then breaks each of those categories down into responsibility levels. So it looks at it and it says, in terms of a person's role, we have strategic people, we have managerial people, and we have technical people. So these are the different levels of skills that are seen throughout our construction industry. And that's how we've written our test. The purpose for the framework is that it is handed to universities and to registered training organisations, and then they can design their courseware around it. At the moment, they don't know what to design. So we have this broken circle where you have industry saying to university, you're not providing me with the people that have the skills I want, and you have university saying, well, tell me what you want. So this is the first step. This framework will allow our training organisations to be able to structure the courseware, and in time we're going to have people that are coming out of our universities that have the skills that we're looking for. Our test will monitor that and see how it's going. So in terms of the scope, at this point there are only 3 modules within the framework. While the framework has been handed over to buildngSMART to be the custodian of it into the future, at the moment it's only got 3. And then within that there are the 3 sub-modules. So at this point in time we have 9 tests of around about 45 or 50 questions each. They're multiple choice or true and false, and they're done online. So the idea here is that you get a quick assessment of whether someone's has an understanding of what they're talking about. What the tests do is they only test their existing knowledge. So this isn't a certificate that lasts for 3 years. It's a test of someone's knowledge at that particular time. What they get is we provide a certificate of completion that can be used to generate that proof of their expert knowledge. It can also be used to create CPD, continuing professional development points. But most importantly, it can strengthen the resume. So it can strengthen a resume of a person, it can strengthen a resume of a group of people that are working together as a team or within an organisation. In terms of the test itself, there's 2 attempts allowed and you get 90 minutes to complete it. The pass rate is structured at 80%, so it's either you passed or you didn't. It's not that there's any scale on this thing, it's just, yep, you know what you're talking about, or you don't yet. What it isn't is a teaching tool. So it isn't being put out there to educate people on what the questions are and allow them to learn what the answers are. We want people to develop their own skills, and we want them to be able to show that they've attained that level of skill. And nor is it a certificate of competency that someone is a good BIM architect. They can know about BIM, but they might be quite crap at it. And this is important, is knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be good at it, where that is something that you rely on for the professional bodies to provide. Now, in terms of where and when can you do this test? So if you're wanting to do this test, you can subscribe to BSA now, and you can do it at that web page. The test is only open to subscribers. A subscription is $200. The test within that is worth about $100. It will allow you those 2 attempts. Now, the ones that are available right now is BIMcreds 101, but it's not going to be released until the 1st of June. So it's fully developed and it's at peer review, and that peer review closes tomorrow. So it may well be released prior to the 1st of June. The next 2, which is BIMcreds 101 for clients and contractors, have also been drafted and they're about to commence the peer review process. And again, they will be released on the 1st of June. So that's our plans for where we want it. If you're not willing to become a subscriber so that you can do these tests when they happen, then you can register your interest at this link and we'll let you know when the tests are available. Now, in terms of the future, one of the things I've learned, because I've never written a test before in my life, right? I'm a quantity surveyor. I work out how much buildings cost. And this is something that I believe in terms of that it's valuable to our industry. What will make this work in the future is that there is custodians of these types of things. So buildngSMART will be looking to establish a group, and it'll probably get built out of the people that are the peer review group at this point in time, but it's open to anybody who wants to be a part of it. What they're going to be about is curating that information. So like any online platform, if the information isn't kept up to date and curated and there aren't people to make sure that it does, it will die. Wikipedia is a great example of this. So for something to gain momentum and then create its own momentum into the future. That group of custodians, they're going to be about developing the future Scout badges. So BIM 101 is going to lose its value sometime in the next 4 or 5 years because people are going to know what they're doing. But the types of things that won't be known is, I think earlier today there was a guy from Cox Architecture, Andrew Butler. Now he is a computational designer and he did some incredible work in factoring 100,000 different design schemes for a particular piece of infrastructure. And I sat there and I thought it was seriously cool. Most of the audience wanted to know what the colour of that thing was. But it was seriously cool. Now he is a guy that deserves a Scout badge. There are not very many people that have that ability. And it's this type of thing that will be developed into the future. RIB Software here are in the game of 4D time planning and 5D cost estimating. It's a Scout badge for the future. So this is how we see it developing, is while these basic tests will lose their relevance, new tests are going to come online and they'll be coming from this custodian group. Another big part of this group is going to be, while we've established reporting and we can get metrics, those things need to be monitored and they also need to be distributed to our training organisations and to industry. So this is where we see the future is. In terms of expansion of it, there's a possibility that the exams get expanded into projects to sort of examine how well a project does, or even an organisation. Myself, I think we need to be really mindful of the work that's already out there. BSI are here in the room, and they have their kite mark certification for organisations is a really, really strong tool. But it doesn't measure the capabilities or the knowledge of the individuals. It measures the organisation's systems and processes and that type of thing. Similarly, there's buildngSMART International, and they're developing a specific IFC, Industry Foundation Class tool, and also some other testing, and that'll be filtered down to us and made available through this test in time. And then also, like locally here in Australia, BIM Excellence and Bilal's work is just amazing, but it's a totally different level to what our offering is here. So I think in any future sort of development of BIMcreds, it just needs to be mindful that it's not competing or standing on anyone else's toes. It's about providing something that's not there now rather than something that's more mainframe. So thank you from our board. These are our volunteer guys, and also from our corporate supporters. And I hope that I've given you an understanding of what BSA is about, what the knowledge framework is about, when and where BIMcreds will be released. Thank you very much.